All right. So, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I'm finally interviewing Rosemary Tejeda, who I cannot wait for all of you guys to meet her. She's also my partner in Empowered Salon Leaders, consulting and mentoring. We do a lot of master classes for salon leaders on Monday nights. And I just absolutely love Rosemary. I actually met her at the John Maxwell Team. I joined in 2013, but she's a founding member. And so she's been an executive director ever since 2011 as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But she's also a master stylist and a founder of RT Salon Coaching, and we're going to talk about that as well. But she has been 30 plus years in the salon industry, and I don't know how that happened because you look like you're 30 years old, Rosemary. So I don't know. You must have started when you were born. She currently works side by side with Vivienne Mackinder. She works with the company Goldwell. She has worked for Kerastase, Redken, and get this, she has worked for Beth Minardi, who's one of my favorites. And I definitely want to get her on one of these next level podcasts as well. She's one of my favorite coaches. Rosemary, you may not know this, but and when I first got in the industry 20 plus years ago, I followed her, everything that she did, just absolutely loved her. So you've worked with some incredible companies, incredible people, and Vivienne Mackinder, oh my gosh, I'm obsessed with her. And we get to hear from her tonight on Empowered Salon Leaders too. So we're excited about this. And get this, she worked on a variety of TV shows that are no longer on the air, which, yeah, I mean, of course, you can kind of see why, but is Ricky Lake, Maury Povich, Sally Jesse, Raphael. I watched actually Ricky Lake a couple times. I remember very drama filled, really crazy, of course. Maury Povich, not so much, but Sally Jesse, Raphael. I used to really like her actually. So I want to hear about that. You've also worked in Fashion Week in New York City. You live in New York City as well. You've worked on Intercoiffure shows in the USA, Canada, get this, Ireland, Brazil, Rome, and the Dominican Republic. How cool is that? You've worked on shows such as ABS, IBS, ISSE, and Orlando Premiere. And I love the fact that you have a quote, and it's remember, it's a journey, not a destination. So let's talk about that journey. And how did you even get into this industry, Rosemary? And how have you been able to sustain and be in the industry for this long? Because many people leave after a couple of years.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, first of all, for having me on, Tina. You know, I'm so glad that we were able to have this time. And thank you. Hello, everyone out there. This journey has been quite a fascinating journey. When I was in high school, my neighborhood friend and I, we used to always just like do hair on each other's dolls and things like that. And I always found that if you took care of things that you loved, you will always prosper in life. I mean, I know it sounds very simple. It doesn't sound very profound, but you'll always seem to, you know, get the rewards from it. So I enjoyed doing each other's hair. And then one day when we were coming back from school, we thought, hey, why don't we go to beauty school? And our school was offering it, the program at the time, through the curriculum. So basically, I was able to go through high school. I didn't have to go to a separate place, just the central high school. So in the morning we would go, or in the afternoon, depending on what it was. And my friend, who actually really came up with the idea, because we thought, hey, why don't, it was so simple. We thought we would just do each other's hair and our doll's hair. I mean, it was like that 101. I went through with it and she didn't. So I fell in love with it right away. And my journey really began when I went to my first hair show in New York City, which was the IBS show during my years of high school. And I remember this company, and I couldn't even tell you what they did. It was called OGGI, Ogi, I guess, or how it's pronounced. And I would see these artists on stage, and I was watching, and I was so fascinated by their mannerisms and their behaviors. And I thought, I wonder what that's like. But to me, I had this visual mindset that, you know, they were there and we were here. Like it was just this huge gap, and they were untouchable. And I said, one day I'm going to know what that's like. And I just kept being inquisitive. I kept trying to find out about people. I would hear other hairdressers when I started working in the industry talk about shows and events and other things. And it created this curiosity for me to prosper.
Mm,
And
yeah.
what kept me going is the people that inspired me to keep going, my clients that I've got over a period of time, and
Mm.
the experiences of just being in the shows before being a part of the shows, being at the shows before being a part in the shows. So
Amazing. So it seems to me like you've been a part of the celebrity lifestyle, so to speak, from day one. Then how soon before you were able to do it? And what advice would you give someone that's new out of school? Because I have a lot of future professionals, we call them, in our schools that want to do what you do, Rosemary. So I always utilize you as a mentor to most of them and talk about you. So talk to that brand new student out of school, or maybe a hairstylist that's been in it for a while that's thinking, man, I've always wanted to do what Rosemary does. So how do they even get started?
well, I think it's a great question. It's really a simple answer. Say yes. Say yes to anything that comes your way. You know, don't think just because I've done X, Y, and Z thus far, no matter if you're first time in the business or years in the business, you always have something to learn. So my first experience was the salon. You know, I say that if you're looking for a salon to go to, or if you have the brilliance of being around the Paul Mitchell culture, learn from those who've stepped before you, and that's what I was doing. I was trying to really understand what made them tick, what drew me to them. And I would either read about their bios, I would Google them. We didn't have the world of social media that we had now. So I would really just do a lot more inquiry and study. And then I would ask people that would know them, because people always lead to people, obviously. So when my first experience was, I found a salon that was forward focused, that
Mm,
was always growing. I was very intentional. I just didn't go to the neighborhood salon. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I had a vision of saying, if I'm going to learn and I'm going to take on this journey, were there bumps? Were there challenges? Of course there were. Were there times that I got frustrated and felt like I was never going to have a chance behind the chair? But your best learning experiences in life are going to be the student. Be the student of life, because that's going to give you, I would be an apprentice all over again any day, even 30 plus years into the industry later. I would do that all over again if I had to, because I would be much more intentional, because at the time I didn't know. But as you start to evolve, you grow within those experiences, and watch how they work. Watch how they evolve. Say, be a client to a salon that you may want to work at, and see what their mannerisms is. Watch the flow. Don't even tell them that you're a beauty school student. Go in, get your hair blown out, getting conditioning treatment, whatever it was. And my first experience was, it was a show called Hair Cares, like caring. And it was a whole organization that was for AIDS. And they were raising money for the industry for AIDS. And it was at my first event. I was terrified. I didn't know what I was walking to. I didn't know how to prepare. I knew that I needed to show up. So my point is, whether you're first time or a few years in, say yes to everything. Never say no. Adjust your schedule as needed to be there and be present 100%.
yeah. No, I love that. And, let's talk about that saying yes thing, because I know there's two schools of thought there. We hear from different people in our industry of like, say yes to the best, and I think it kind of goes back to the message that we heard at the John Maxwell team just last week of, the question was by Jeff Henderson. He said, what do you want to be known for? And what are you known for? Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so let's talk about that, because as you've worked and navigated over the years, Rosemary, like, what are you known for? Like, what do people say about you, of who you are, and how have you been able to intentionally mold that over the years?
Yeah, yeah. And I do love that question. I'm so glad that you asked. So this is a question actually I posed to one of my clients yesterday, because I'm so intrigued on trying to establish, what am I known for? I'm very good behind the scenes kind of gal. I'm never one of those people like, look at me, I've arrived. I'm much more of an introvert. If I'm in a place where I'm in a connected environment with people that I know, I might be a little bit more ambivert, a little bit of both. But when you're coming into something like that, you say, what do I want to be known for? And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to be known just as like a good hairdresser. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. I want to be known for something more. So, I remember one of my things that my boss said to me, and he said, my ex-boss, and he said, you're a day maker.
Mm.
And then I thought to myself, okay, so what does that mean? So yesterday when I was talking to one of my clients, who's a longtime client of mine, she says, Rosemary, the way that and I love that she said this because she was so open and just said it. Because I said to her, I don't really even know how to describe it. I don't want to be known as the short haircut expert or any of that, because I never went into this industry as being specific about something. I wanted to be just like as our friend John says, be a river, not a reservoir.
Yeah.
Just learn, and then filter whatever that is working or not working, or it's time to kind of move on from that. So with that being said, she said to me, Rosemary, you're known for making a difference in people's lives, and you're bringing the beauty from the inside out because you're understanding the landscape of each individual that you touch, whether it be through conversation or through technique or both. And she goes,
Wow.
yeah. And I mean, I felt like I needed to give her free services at this point, because I was like, why am I charging you? I did your hair and you're the one telling me what I'm supposed to be doing.
Wow, she's like an evangelist for you. That's incredible.
Yeah. And she goes, and the way that she goes, and the way you want to be remembered is be able to impact somebody's life that they can do it better than you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. Impact people's life. That's huge. And oh my gosh, I want to dive into this a little bit more. Where did it come from for you? Like when did you make that shift in your life? Because I think there's a lot of hairstylists listening right now, a lot of leaders that are thinking, yeah, I want to be known for that too. But the why's got to be pretty big. So when did that shift start happening for you? And here you are, a hairstylist, working for incredible companies and incredible people, obviously. And we know that Vivienne Mackinder was a founding member of John Maxwell as well, too. And so you were working side by side with her and joining the John Maxwell team. But not many hairstylists invest that type of money into themselves like you have over the years. And it's been a long time. So when did that shift for you to invest in yourself in this type of training?
There are two parts to that story. So I will give you the quick but effective way that I did it. When I was working for a salon that was proficient in creating a business model, in other words, we were well-oiled machines, I went up to my boss and I asked him, he kept talking about this word artistic director. And I've heard of the terminology, but I just said to him, what does an artistic director look like to you? So here was the shift. He said, Rosemary, I knew that you would want to do something like this because I see that your heart wants to share and learn. However, you're a woman and you're going to have a family and you're not going to have the time. And that was like a punch in the gut to me.
Yeah.
That propelled me forward, because I said to myself, I'm going to show you that when you have a dream, whatever that dream may be, or you have a vision, or you have the heart to serve, that was going to be the growth process. So that was my fuel injector to my life. Then how that evolved over the next couple of years, I was really, really focused. So I would actually take money, whether it be part of my tips or part of my salary, and I still do this to this day, is put money aside. I look at it as money that's almost like money that wasn't existent. I would just put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. And I would be so forward focused on who it is that I needed to see, or at least find out who are those people that kind of pique my interest. So I would go to an event or a show. But what really was the turning point is when Vivienne Mackinder became a guest at our salon, and my boss had brought her in. And I am definitely, like I said earlier, I'm a person in the back of the room. I like to watch everything from a distance and observe from the outside corners. I don't jump into the center. I don't like say, look at me, raise my hand type of thing. But there was a voice in my head because I was so frustrated with what my boss had said and where I was at in that time. And he said, sit in the front, sit in the front, sit in the front. And it was this voice that was just kind of kept peeking and just picking at my brain. So that particular day when she was setting up to do her seminar, I sat dead smack in the front, and we joke about this till now. We've known each other for quite some time. And she had her speakers on both sides of my ears. And she's like, you may want to move back because your ears, with her pretty British accent, your ears are going to start hurting. So I moved back like a quarter of an inch. And that was my cooperation. And I was so moved by what she had done as a woman in our industry,
Yeah.
even though she had the incredible pedigree and she could have leveraged more of that, she wanted to claim a name for herself. And I said, I don't know what I need to know from her yet, but I knew that I needed to know from her something. And that at that point, the shift was for 3 months straight. You go to an event, you go to a seminar, you go to a class, you get business cards, you get all these things. But how many times do you take an effort to really reach out to those people? These people have put their time into you. I emailed her every day for 3 months, every day. And I said to her, I don't care if I'm doing hair or not. I just want to see how you work. So that was where the consistency and the determination came and the discipline come forefront. So we joke about it to this day. So I said to her, either number one, you got sick of my emails or you felt really bad for me. So she offered me an opportunity to go assist her. Now, I would have been fine holding a cup of coffee, a towel for 9 hours. I didn't care. I was just there to learn, to understand the dynamics of who this individual was. Because again, it was her message more than her techniques. I had seen some of her work and I was inspired by it, but the inspiration wasn't what got me going. It was really more along the lines of the words, the verbiage, the motivation. And through that time, I actually assisted her for 1.5 years for free. I did that because I always said yes whenever she needed me for something. And I didn't know what I was going into again. And I readjusted my schedule. I made myself time. They said, are you available? I said, yeah, right now. I mean, whatever you need. And then she told me she was creating an artistic team. And I said, oh, okay. So what does that take? And she goes, well, you have to go through an interview and you have to invest into training. So I said, okay. And I started learning things from her here and there, especially at her classes. And she goes, okay. So I said, when do I have to do the interview? And she says, you have been for the last 1.5 years. And I said, wow, that's the longest interview I had in my life. And she said, I was willing to see with all the years that you had, because I had been in the business now for 15 years. I was willing to see if you were willing to unlearn and relearn.
Oh, wow.
And how much your heart was really dedicated to that craft. And when she created this artistic team and she wanted people to be a representation of who she was when she wasn't unavailable to come to these events, and then they would, want to have other people, she created this team. That's when the John Maxwell team came about, because there was a training and it was, do you have what it takes? It was a John Maxwell training. And it was so strong to me because there was a specific thing that John was talking about, not only is talent not enough, but do you have the heart to serve others? Yeah. So on that teaching, to come to kind of full circle, on that teaching, he spoke of a man named Paul Martinelli, which we know is the founder of, and the he's not the founder, he's the the president of the John Maxwell team, or was. And John Maxwell said, if you want to learn how to speak, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be a representation of Vivienne, I want to be able to connect with people who are in the industry longer than me, or be able to have a voice. At least that's what I thought I wanted to do. But it's evolved since then. And I reached out, and literally within seconds of reaching out to Paul Martinelli, when he mentioned his email, he told me about the John Maxwell team. And I was terrified, because I was like, what is this? Because I thought it was going to be a book, a podcast, a video, a big old blurb or something like that. I didn't know this was actually an investment. Mm-hmm. So I told Vivienne about it, and Vivienne was intrigued. I was too scared, and I was letting my fears take over the situation. And to come again, full circle, Paul Martinelli reached out to me and he said, you have something that's burning inside of you that you want to grow and you want to learn and you want to expand. So if you were willing to invest enough into a phone call, why are you not willing enough to invest in you?
Wow.
I didn't have an answer.
Yeah.
But I went, humada. I don't know how I'm going to make this work. I don't know where I'm going to get the money, but yes, I'm going to figure this out. And here we are.
Wow. Yeah. And just the mere fact that you've invested in yourself, I know personally it's thousands and thousands of dollars to do this. And it isn't just about investing in your talent and hair, right? But you're investing in everything else, right? Where most people don't do it. And that's really 85% of our success, right? It's not in the technical, right? It's in all of these other aspects of life. And oh my gosh. Okay. So I think the first thing that you did when you know, the power of yes is the mere fact that you were thinking higher of yourself. You went after somebody that you're like, you know what, I'll work for free for them, like whatever it takes. But I think a lot of people kind of settle and they don't go after the best of the best, right? So they kind of settle and they don't really love who they're working with or for, right? And so they choose, you know, a lower standard. And so then they get frustrated. And I hear so many stories, and you know, I'm sure you coach a lot of salon owners and stylists in this as well too, but I hear a lot of stories of people getting really frustrated with their leader and then quitting and leaving, right? And then I hear from the salon leader that they're frustrated because they quit, right? And so, you know, let's kind of talk on both sides of this, because I know there's the owner perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the employee
Yeah.
perspective,
Yeah.
right, of looking at this. And
Yeah.
so it kind of collides. There's not a lot of alignment. And I don't think there's a lot of communication going back and forth. And so, you know, as an owner looking at you and thinking about my partner, Sean Chido, he did the same thing. He's like the Rosemary to me, you know, of where he was like, I'll work for free for you. And I knew at that point in time, like, this is the guy. Like, this is the guy that needs to lead our companies, because he's like this, almost like your client that you had right now that's like your evangelist. Sean was like my evangelist, you know, like he had my heart. He was determined. He was consistent. Like you're talking about all of these areas. And that's, I think we almost fall short as leaders of not selecting people like the Rosemarys and the Seans in our life. Like we settle too. Like we just take sometimes warm bodies, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not looking for the right people to connect with, and vice versa. Again, you know, people are not looking for the right person to partner with or to be working for. So how was it that you believed in yourself so much, first of all, you know, and then let's talk about some of the salons that you're coaching and what you've seen as well. Believe in yourself so much that you're like, I'm just going to work for Vivienne for free for a year and a half, even if I have to hold her coffee. Like, where did that come from? I think that's just so incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I made a commitment. I made a commitment to me. I didn't let the circumstances of my environments determine my decision. I was the one making the choices. Because during the time that I was going to school, I did work for salons that, unless someone died or got pregnant, you were never going to have an opportunity to move onto the floor prior to working the salon where I met Vivienne. And it was very disheartening, especially coming out of school. You know, it looked visually, the place looked beautiful. It was intriguing. It was inviting. It was, you know, mesmerizing.
Yeah.
But it didn't give you an opportunity to growth. And just like they were hiring somebody for a body, I was hiring for a place to work. You know, that's basically what it was. So the shift was when I was challenged to go back into the industry. I remember when I went back, I actually was going to college at the same time. When I finished beauty school and high school, I went to college for fashion and fashion business and merchandising.
Wow.
And I remembered I was working in the garment industry and working in the salons on the weekend. And I remembered I didn't want to have this continual pattern of just doing. So when I decided to go back into hair, I actually went to work at the front desk. I didn't even really go to be a stylist because I wasn't sure. I was questioning about whether I grew out of the business, even though I was still engaged in the business. You know, is the opportunity still there? Did I grow out of it? Is it not who I am? Do I have the opportunity to even try? I really didn't go. And I remember the first person that interviewed me, he saw that I wrote down that I had a license, and he said, well, why is it that you want to work at the desk? And I said, I'm not sure if this is for me. And I was completely overwhelmed and intimidated. And
Wow.
he said to me, no, you're going to start from the beginning. And that's where the turning point, even though I was at the time, I was in my early 20s. and I was working in the city, and I was making about 60 grand a year at the time. At my 20s, to me, I felt like that was like a millionaire. I went from about 60 grand a year to $30 a day.
Wow.
And that was really hard. I had to move back
Yeah.
home. I had to shift, but that's when I made the commitment, and the commitment was to me. And I said, the only one who's going to decide, aside from a higher power that would take it away all from me,
Mhm.
is me. And and I always remind myself whenever I'm feeling wobbly woo, or whenever I'm feeling like things are not, sorry, I have a cat that's having a moment.
That's awesome.
I think about, why did I get into this industry?
Wow.
Not why do I want to get out of it?
That's so good. Why did I get into this? Yeah, I think that kind of goes back to that too. Like, what do you want to be known for, and what are you known for? And we're all going to have wobbly woos, like last year and even this year, I think people are struggling with the wobbly woos. And I always try to tell people, I'm like, listen, when emotions are high, brain cells are few. Please do not make a decision when emotions are high. Like, let's ride this out. I think, where we all live in the Midwest, you're in New York and I'm in Michigan, like, don't make a major decision in January or February, and maybe even into March, because there's like this trueness of the blues, so to speak, when we don't have sunshine, we're just kind of like, we're off a little bit, so I try to tell my salon leaders, like, please, just have a little bit more empathy in January and February for the team members. Like, let's just help them to get through this. You know what I mean? Because the wobbly woos, and we got to remind people, like, why did you get into this? Like, tell your story. That's why podcasts and like this is so important. Every time I speak on a podcast, Rosemary, or when we speak on our Empower Salon, leaders, or, anything that I speak on, my why gets rejuvenated. I get juiced up again. Like, you've got to share your why. So how is it for you that you keep your why in front of you? And what advice are you giving salon leaders to do that right now?
I think it needs to take a time and say, what is it that you really want? I mean,
Yeah.
it may sound very simple, but I think that a lot of times we get too caught up in the scheduling and all of the parameters of the salon world. I think whenever I'm speaking to a salon owner, I said, well, what is it that you want? What did you envision for your business? What did you envision for yourself? What would be the ideal person? And for myself, or, speaking as an individual, I think to myself, well, what's next? And I also reach out to people that are sometimes outside of my circle of hair people. Just because we're hairdressers doesn't mean we can't reach outside of them. If I didn't have people from the John Maxwell team who are bigger, better, smarter, and stronger than me, and have them challenge my beliefs of, sometimes I allow, the black cloud of life to kind of negate the process of thought. If I didn't have them, you have to have mentors in every part of your life. For mentors from your spiritual world, you need to have mentors from your business world. You have to have people who've walked before you, once again. So, and I think with business owners, I think they get too caught up in the minutia of everything. I think with salon stylists, I think we get caught up in just saying the next client, the next client, the next client. But even learn from your clients. There are conversations that those people will share with you that they will never share with anyone else.
Yeah.
And I never knew that the woman started yesterday. And again, I've been doing her hair for years. The woman started yesterday and was telling me about all the things that were wrong with her daughter. She started about the ADD, and she was telling me about, she's like so unhappy in her marriage. And I was just listening, and I was just listening and just listening. And I was learning so much from her because I could see it in her energy. And then the conversation shifted, and she goes, what's going on with you? And I said, oh, well, this is what I'm learning, and I'm trying to discover these things. And she came up with that.
Wow.
So, the whys are always answered. It's just a matter of if you open up your ears to listen.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And, the fact that you asked her a question, and I know one of our next master classes we're going to be teaching, right now we're on Today Matters, but we're going to be teaching Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And so I've been kind of discovering that with myself right now. Am I asking good enough questions of myself and of my leaders and my teams, right? And so kind of walking through that process. And I love that you said, what is it that you really want? What have you been finding with salon leaders and salon owners that you've been coaching, Rosemary, what have you been finding that they really want? Like, what's an overall theme that you're noticing?
They really want true, loyally committed people who are all on the same page.
Yeah, 100%. Like, wouldn't that just make it better? So how do you coach them to do that? So true, loyally committed people all on the same page. So how do you coach them through that so that they can achieve that?
I think that the best way to coach them through that, and what I found, is find out what their sweet spot is, and it
Mm,
is in alignment with your values of what you want. Because what you value, if it's not with what you value for your business and yourself, then maybe that person's not for you. Because I think that a lot of people in the salon I'm working for as well, we have people who are there is just to fill up space because we need to think about the dollars and the cents. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at your day, does it bring more exhaustion because of the environment that they bring in? Or are you more concerned about the standard of where you're going into that next level? Or are you more concerned about just hitting a bottom line? And I know that a lot of people right now are in this survival mindset. But
yeah.
wouldn't you want to have that principle? And I say this to my bosses, and I said, wouldn't you want to have 20% of the people doing 80% of the work than having 80% of the people do 20% of the work?
Absolutely.
And John talks about
Yeah.
that all the time. And it is so strong and so powerful. So when you're coaching somebody, I would have when I'm talking to a salon owner, I said, find out where they're at, find out where their sweet spot, and pair them up maybe with somebody who's the complete alternative opposite, and see if that person, if they are in alignment for your values, your culture, and your vision. And ask them, what do you want? And can we meet on a common ground? If you cannot, then you know what you need to do.
Yeah, I love this. I love when John was talking about what is the vision and mission and values, like what exactly does it mean, right? And
Yeah.
so he said that the head of your company, so think of it as a person, so the head of your company is your vision, and your mission is the heart of the company. But your culture, your values culture is actually the soul of your company.
Yeah.
And so when he spoke that into existence, I was like, yes, that's it. That's totally it. Right. So the head, so how do you lead your business? So it's interesting because I coach a lot of salon owners as well, and they really don't even know what their vision is. It's like this long construed statement, right? And it's like, okay, do you even know what that is without reading it? Does your team even know what that is? Like, let's shorten it up, something that really means something to you. And what is that? And so, hearing the training that we just went through, which was incredible. So it
Mhm.
tied in with what John Maxwell was saying, what Jeff Henderson was saying in his book Four, which I thought was it's FOR, was really incredible. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you help coach salon owners and leaders to find their mission, vision, and values in their company to be the leading, let's just say the leading compass of their business, right? And how do you coach them to sustain that?
I think the best way to how I would coach them is the best way, or what I have found is saying, what made you decide to open a salon?
Yeah.
What made you decide to come into this industry? Whether you are in this beauty industry as a licensed professional, or if you are a business person, why did you decide to come into it? And then the next part I would ask them is saying, what do you see for your business? What would that look like? Have them paint a vision or write it down. What would be the ideal person of that place?
Mm,
And if things weren't working right, who would you turn to if you needed help?
so good. You're one of your gifts is asking questions, and I think that's incredible because good leaders do ask great questions. And so if you're listening to this, join our next master class as well, because it's on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Very, very powerful. And something that I have found, and through a lot of trainings that I've gone through and coaching people, is that the why is 7 layers deep. And I do class for my students in school, because I asked them, why do you really want to own a salon? And so most of the time they don't really know. And then of course, you talk to salon owners and they're like, well, I opened a salon because I was bringing in such and such amount of money and I wanted to keep 100% of that. And so it got to the money, right? And it's like, well, have you realized that you don't keep 100% of that, right?
Yeah.
It's probably maybe about 52%, so to speak. And then when you narrow it down, it's about maybe 5% after you pay off all of your expenses as well, too. So talk through that process. Like, how do you get people off of making money as their goal? Like, how do you help them to realize, okay, I want to have freedom and make money because of this, right? And so I try to get them 7 layers deeper and actually have tears in their eyes. Like, it's like, oh man, because I've heard people say, because I want to buy a house for my mom. Why do you want to buy a house for your mom? Because my mom never really had her own house and I want to help. Like, why do you want to do that? Like, let's really talk about this. And then when the why is big, the how gets easier, right? Through the process. So how have you been able to navigate that yourself, Rosemary? And how do you coach leaders to navigate that?
Well, the one thing, and I'm glad that you asked this, because there was a time when I went from working from a salary. Now, the salon where I met Vivienne at was a salary-based salon, which was it was the norm I knew. People spoke about commission, and to me, I knew what it meant, but I didn't even look at it at the same perspective. But what I was listening to was a lot of the clients were feeling very overwhelmed because it was about a 13,000 square foot salon. And people felt lost in the sauce. They felt like they came in and it was this grandiose thing. And it was beautiful, but it was very grand. So then when I went on my own, I said, oh, I'm going to become my own personal, business. And I have to tell you, I hated it every single step of the way. Though I was taking care of, maybe having my own chair and renting a chair in a space, I felt like I was alone. And I felt like there was no growth because there was nothing to challenge me. The only thing that was challenging me was the things I needed to pay for. The product, the chair, the credit card fees, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, the schedule was okay, but now the schedule was based on somebody else's place, because now I had to work off of their schedule. So now my clients were being inconvenienced through that process. So when I went out again and I left, and I did that for a year, people even tell me now, would you ever do it again? And I was like, well, it's not really something I want. I love the collaboration because it lifts me up. It pushes me further.
Yeah.
So now on the flip side, I work in a salon now that is a commission-based salon. And sometimes I find it a little hard. And I'm going to tell you why. Because from a stylist perspective, you have good weeks and bad weeks. And what happens? You have slow times. So now you got to figure out how to get the money, right?
Right.
And now then we have COVID, so we got limited amount of space. So that even makes it even a little bit more challenging. And now some people are doing very well, which is great. God bless. Kudos to you. And some people are there struggling. When you have a salary, you have a salary. So the bad part of the salary is that it doesn't make you work as hard because, you're always getting the same check. Right. So there's those two sides of the coin. So for me to navigate through that, I had to realize that I have to be responsible for the actions that I needed. And I need to create a sense of urgency. I need to create a sense of importance. I needed to create steps for the next gain. So if I'm working with somebody or with salon coaches or salon owners, again, I would see exactly where are they at in their lives. I would say, where are your people at in their lives? What's most important to them? And what part do they feel that they can provide into the salon world? Find out. You got to navigate where they are, because right now they might be in a different place. So if you're working with a staff member or staff members that are becoming a bit of a challenge, ask them, what has brought you to this point that makes you feel this way? Have them do a self-evaluation of themselves. That's really where I would be. Yeah. And I think that's that's the way that I would really go about it. It's almost like you have to, you were talking about digging deep into the layers, and that's what it is. It's really, it's not listening to the rants and raves. It's discovering what's causing those rants and raves that they're having.
Yeah.
And for salon owners, I think also salon owners need to challenge the stylist as well. You have to be transparent enough to let them know what's going on in your business so that they can find out whether they are willing to help your business or not. I think a lot of times people say, oh, well, you're not hitting your numbers, or you need to do more of this, or you need to do more of that. And people need to understand, what is it that you need to be in alignment. They need to be in a road connecting with each other and having a conversation, but it needs to be engagement, because you have to do it almost has to be almost seasonal. I don't even think it needs to be once a year. I think it needs to be seasonal, because I think everybody's at in different places in their life, depending on what their environments and their circumstances are. I think it's really about conversation and connection. It really has to peel away all the profits. The profits will come when everybody's in alignment. You can't always make money your focus, because you know what, even the richest, you can ask the most richest people, look at Bezos, Amazon, right?
Right.
This man has more money. I mean, he could basically buy his own planet at this point, right? If you think about it.
Right.
He's stepping away and letting somebody else, because he's taken on another endeavor. That man has more money than God knows what. And what we all still keep buying from Amazon. And in regards to the mission and the culture and the values, you got to keep it simple. Like Jeff was saying, what are the poignant points? What are you known for, and what do you want to be known for? Put it in 3 simple words. If you can master that, you can master conversation with stylists. You can master conversation with clients of the future. It has to be something that is broken down. We live too much in a society where it's click and go, click and go, click and go. And we need to be in a place where we can understand where everybody's at, so that we can grow and prosper together and respect each other.
That's so good and so powerful. And the owner or someone running your company has to be the biggest visionary in your company. And so you have to see that vision. And I love what you were saying. And I want to talk a little bit about those shows that you were on too, and what that was like here in a moment. So I'll let people hang on to that. But you said something really powerful, because, a lot of people will say to us, what do we need to become in order to work in our dream salon, if you will, or a dream space? And you said 3 words that I was like, whoa, this is really powerful. Everybody needs to write this down. And I was thinking about this because that's what I'm looking for too, right? And I also want to, do this in myself too, is, be able to unlearn, to relearn, and to have dedication. So that was something that, Vivienne was looking for with you. And so that's so true. Like when you bringing on somebody, I think that's why, for the most part, I only hire or bring on future partners that are just out of school, because they're already in that mindset of, unlearning and relearning. They have that determination, versus bringing somebody that's been in the business for a while. How was it that you were able to make that shift after being in the business for 15 years? Because for the most part, just like Vivienne said, she may not even bring on someone that's been in the business for that long, because they're not willing to unlearn, relearn, and be determined. How were you able to make that shift in your life? And talk to that salon business owner of how they can cultivate that type of person in their company as well.
How I made the shift was basically showing up, meaning that I dedicated specific time, whether it be on a weekly basis, daily basis, to take time in my schedule and plan it out. So I'm disciplined, very disciplined by nature. That's something easy. You can't really teach discipline. What you have to do is create action. So whether a salon owner needs to help that person that might not be disciplinary, but create action so that maybe it's an action and then it can bring them to something that brings them to a higher level. So meaning maybe if I was to look at it and I was going to be teaching somebody, I'll say, okay, what is it that you love to do? I ask them, they'll say, oh, I love to create really funky hairstyles. Okay, so now I, as a salon owner, would go in and start looking at maybe a program or a situation or maybe follower or whatever it is. And you say, well, who do you like? Who do you like to watch? If you're not doing a program per se, but if you're doing, let's say, a training program, then you would go through obviously the training program of that person, like Vivienne has one. If you're doing something along the lines of saying, show me the people that you like and let them see and create like a visionary board of what it is that they have.
Mhm.
And then create an action plan. And you say, you know what, every week I want you to post whatever it is. But let's say
Mhm.
haircuts, you know, something that inspires them. Say anything that you want. And then maybe have them present it. Have them
Yes.
present it so that they feel accountable to something. And if they say, oh, I'm afraid to talk, and say, it's just us. Okay, so present it to me. So you know, you're making them step outside of their comfort zone by doing that. For me, I knew that for a person who's disciplinary or disciplined, that was easy. So I just said, okay, I'm going to start from the basics. Now, did I have challenges? Yes. And then I would have to send the work. Now that would terrify me because now I'm getting it critiqued by a person that I admired. And I would have to be willing to listen to whatever that critique was, you know. And then what I would do is I'd get my colorist. We were departmentalized in the other salon. So I would get a colorist to try to mimic without them seeing the program because they weren't part of the program. And I'll say, what do you think about maybe if you put some, do you have some time? Maybe you can do something a little creative and let them take it on, but just sort of like collaborate with them. So
Mhm.
that even creates the next process because now what that's doing, that's creating a connection of community and unity. Because it was like taking a client on a journey, but except it's a mannequin head,
Mhm.
you know? And I think that if you work along those lines, that's where things are going to be in a much better place because now you're going to see where that person is and where they can rise and shine.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head because earlier we talked about, you've got to create a space where every team member has an opportunity to grow,
Yeah.
and is it in writing? Like, this is the growth plan for you, for your company,
Yep.
right? And so is that in writing and is it presented well and communicated well? And like you said, I just love what you said is creating action plans, consistent, constant action plans for every single team member. And I think for the most part, it's kind of vague, and I think one of the areas that we've really struggled with, Rosemary, is follow through in all of our companies. And so we're trying to get more creative of what that follow through might look like. And so we just started using Trello. And thank God for Trello because it helps us to record the discussion that we had and to go back. Okay, so how are you doing with this? Like, let's set a due date to this. When do you want to be closer to the goal in this to have this done? And like you said, have them present, like challenge their capacity, like push them beyond, which I'm sure Vivienne has done for you. And I think that's incredible. And I think a lot of salon owners that I coach, they're like, well, how do I, challenge their capacity and not pay them for it? I'm like, they're not looking to be paid for this. Like, they just want to be challenged. Talk through that process because I think that's part of maybe the block, the limiting beliefs on the salon leaders right now is the fact that they're afraid to give more to their team members to challenge their capacity, right? Because they think they're going to have to pay them more where they don't have any funds to pay them. Like, where are they going to pay them from,
Right. I 100% agree with you. I think that too many people get caught up in the payments of things. The payment comes through when you get the experience through your life. So what
Yeah.
you have to do is you have to set that up on the front end of your interview process. You say, listen, this is who we are, this is what we're about, and that all comes back to your vision and your culture. So they have to understand that, you like John was talking about, and Tina, when you listen to somebody like Michael Jordan, or you listen to somebody who's very successful and has done something, the payments don't come until the end of the process, right? They really don't come. The success doesn't come
Exactly.
really to the end. It's all
Right.
the steps along the way. I had no idea, and I had no idea, what was going to be the financial game. I knew that the payment was fulfillment. So, for example, being a employee of my salon, I thrive on having conversations to challenge. I thrive on that because I want to be able to make sure that I'm gauging and meeting to what your expectations are, as well as the expectations of others. So when I don't have that, there's no financial gain in that. If anything, it's more heartbreaking because it's an emotional, you get more fulfilled in capacity through an emotional experience than you do from a financial. The financial will come only because you have learned to commit and follow through the process of the learn. That's where the
Yeah.
financial gain comes. So for a salon owner, what you need to do is you need to establish that on the front end, and you say, listen, this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is what we can provide you. Now, what can you provide for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think otherwise you're going to create what we call title leaders,
Yep.
where they lead by the title and they'll say, well, am I going to get paid for this? So now we've changed our mindset of saying, okay, wait a second, have a heart for people, but a mind for business. So let me train you on business, and this is
Yep.
what it looks like. And so, the only way the business can pay more is if it's making more money, period. Like that's business right there. Business 101, right? And so kind of talking about that, let's talk about, the title leader. So how do you know if you've got somebody on the front end that's leading with the title, so to speak, that thinks they need a title to lead? Because we all know that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. It's not a title. No title is going to save you, right? Let's talk about that for a moment, and then tell us about the TV shows that you're on. We're dying to know.
Okay. So what would you like to know in regards to the title about what people?
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, how does somebody know that they're caught up in a title leadership?
I think that everything itself reveals itself. So I had a situation recently. Anybody who's caught up in the whole title doesn't bring you anywhere other than it reveals who you are. It's like, for lack of a better word, but it's like a cheater. A cheater always shows its spots, no matter what. So when somebody has felt the need to have a title to show something, I think that they never come from a place of authenticity, because now what they do is they take their title and they rule by governing and creating rules as opposed to creating growth and experience. So I think you have to be really, 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 really intentional and really specific on exactly what that person brings to the table if you plan on having somebody to be your leader of that organization. Because I've had my ex-boss, as much as he had taught me how to be proficient in the salon, at the end of the day, I realized that there was a gap between where I was as an individual and where I was as a technical artist. And I knew that if I was able to get that balance in life, I knew that I would be able to come to another level, which again, I did not know what that was going to be, that I was going to be able to come full circle and grow. But he was not on that page. He led more like Napoleon. He led more by like rules and regulations of what he wanted. And that's what I was groomed. And I knew that if I did not make that shift in my own personal life as a leader and understanding what leadership meant, that it was going to be a reflection of your work. And that's another thing. If you think that you're taking on an artistic director and you're taking on all these things and you're showing all these names and all these titles and you're like, oh, look at all the things that I can do. If you are not careful and not consistently trying to grow and stretch yourself, everything that you do will be a reflection of your behavior through the actions of what you're creating, whether it be technically or personally. And you will lose the people who have relied on you to follow and grow with you. And you will be walking that path alone. Not to mention, you may end up losing your business or your job.
Yeah. Wow. You said it perfectly. Thank you, Rosemary. We don't even know where we're going to go on these conversations. Talk about the TV shows that you were on. What was that like?
Okay. So the TV shows, I'm going to share one experience with you in particular. When I went to the Sally Jesse Raphael show, you didn't really get to see her much. She was one of those people, though people were so fascinated by what she did, she was not connecting, engaging with people at all. She was definitely on that side of the world, and we were on that side of the world. She never got to know who was doing things for her. And the only time you saw her was when she was already on camera. And she never said hello. She never said goodbye. Now, look, I don't need to have a pat on the back or anything, but again, it's all about creating connections, right? It's creating some form of unity. We're doing something for your show. And if this is how you engage, you keep yourself almost in this little bubble of the world. And I think that that was really hard. So it was an experience that I would say that was a little hard to see, but it was also a learning lesson because of that experience. Now, Ricky Lake, the show was Make Me Up Because I Want to Dump Him. This one particular show. And you see these women, and I swear it was heartbreaking. These women were really in very bad relationship situations. So they wanted to have a new outlook on life. And when you're working on these shows, once again, Ricky Lake was very good at creating turmoil. So it was an incredible experience. But the funniest one of all of them was dealing with the Maury Povich. That's the one I did the most before. And they would have several things going on. And I remember there was this one young lady, and it reminded me of something. And I'm going to speak into the bad part and the good part. There was this one young lady that they asked me to go and do her hair, that the head hairdresser of the Maury Povich show did her hair. And they said to me, literally, do not speak to her at all. Just do her hair and make it look better because she hates the way it looks. And I thought, well, that was okay, well, fine. So I went in there. She was a lovely young lady from the Midwest. And she was about 5'5", and she was 60 pounds.
Oh, wow.
And all she wanted to do for the rest of her life was to become a news reporter. Like, she was inspired by Maury Povich's wife, Kaiti Chong, or whatever her name was. And she started having a conversation with me, even though I wasn't supposed to speak.
Yeah.
And everybody was there that worked on the show was talking to her about the fact that they kept asking her if she wanted to die because she had a huge eating disorder. And she was 58 pounds before she arrived, and she was 60 pounds by the time she got to New York. And they kept saying, well, am I fat? Am I fat? And they were just really just peeking into her, and they were really just going on to her. And I felt so heartbreaking because I'm seeing this happening as I'm doing her hair. And she's like, no, you're beautiful. You're beautiful. And she looked at me and she said, thank you, Rosemary, for making me feel beautiful. And she walked away. And the producer said to me, our job is to make sure that we ruin everybody else's life.
Wow.
And I was so
That's disgusting.
disgusted. And I said, I will never do the shows again. That's when I stopped doing the shows. However, on the flip side, there was a woman who lost herself at 13. She just gave up on life, and she came in and she wanted to have a fresh outlook. And she turned around, and she was going through a lot mentally, health and everything like that. And she turned around and she said, thank you for bringing my life back again.
Wow.
So with that being said, the shows were a great learning curve because you got to see where people were in their rawest before they went on stage. But unfortunately, by the time they came back, because the way they were riled up based on how the show works, you got to see another side of that person. And I think TV world, my sister does it now all the time for makeup. It's a harsh reality of a very difficult world to deal with and juggle. So if you have a heart to serve, and I'm talking about not just to do, I'm talking about a heart to serve others, it may not be the industry for you.
Yeah. Really incredible. What advice do you give for anybody who wants to be a celebrity stylist? Because we have a lot of our graduates, and even, I've heard of some salon stylists that's been in it for a while thinking, oh man, I would love to be a celebrity stylist. Where should they start? I know you said say yes to everything. What's one thing in particular that they could do in order to be a celebrity stylist?
I think if I had to do it again, I think what I would do is follow the people that you like and be engaged in their page or their site, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or maybe private message them, direct message them and say, I'd love to do some of your work. Or, which even would be better, is maybe perhaps create or recreate some of the work that they do and then post it and then tag them. Because if they see that you have some interest, but you have to be consistent. It can't be like once a week, and you can't be like, oh, and then I decided to do this. I'm talking about, this is, I'm going to say JJ. This is JJ's, and I was inspired by JJ's thing, and and then tag that person. Yeah. Stay engaged with them so that you can be engaged back. They can be engaged back with you, and be consistent. Like I said, it took me 3 months before Vivienne ever responded. You can't just give up because I don't respond. You got to keep going for it. If you want it, if it's here, it'll be here, and it'll be here, because the best gift you have in your life is this. The best thing that you can give is this. And the best thing that you can ever do is comprehend.
Yeah. So beautiful. I love it. Yeah. I love that you said that, because just don't give up, and I love when, I think it's the book, it's something about like few inches from gold or something on that line. I have the title of the book completely wrong, but you are like, think about it, because I have coached so many people that just wanted to give up and said, Tina, I'm going to give up, and it's like, no, like ask for help. And something I think I learned last week that's going to shift my mindset. It's 2 words: ask big. Ask big. And, when Jeff Henderson said that last week, that just blew my mind because I thought, am I asking big enough? Like of things that I want to do, and because of fear holding me back, like fear of rejection, right? Of someone turning me down, well, how do you navigate that as we end this out, to be able to ask big? And what advice do you want to give salon leaders right now on that?
I'm still working through that myself. I think the biggest thing, if I was to take it, my mother said to me actually a few days ago, and she said, don't allow your fear to hinder your growth, because your fear will never be able to prosper because you don't let your faith come through to watch it grow.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, my asking big, or for one to ask big, is saying, what can I ask for more of? If you have a question, let's just say, I want to be able to do a mile of walking. I'm just going to say a mile of walking.
Yeah.
And you'll say, can I really do a mile of walking? What about if I do a mile in 3 or a mile in 5? And ask that question while you're going through the process, or even when you're reflecting on when you commit to an ask. And if you have that fear, that's okay. You're going to have no's, but there'll always be yes. I think of like Nick Vujicic. We talk about Nick.
Yes.
He asked like 40 people before the 40th person said yes. And when he said that he wanted to come and speak to the schools, you have to your want has to be bigger than your fear.
Yeah.
So whatever you're doing in your life, you could say, how can I make that question even bigger? If I can get here, then what would the next question be?
Yeah. So good. Wow. We have so many good nuggets here. Thank you, salon leaders, for joining us today. And those of you listening to the recording as well, too. Rosemary, how do people get a hold of you? And how do they hire you for RT salon coaching? Why should they hire you? And what's the best way to connect?
Well, you can do the hokey pokey. That's where you can start.
That's right.
That's the best thing. Any pigeon courier would actually work if you want to send it this way. I have a nice window out here. So
Yes.
what you can do is you can reach me. RT Salon Coaching was created to really work with individuals, as well as salon owners, to really create a path that is viable to the salon, as well as to the individual. So I was really speaking into my lane is more about education and growth, because I think that that's something that sometimes we get caught up in forgetting how important it is. We need to constantly learn. So you can either reach me at Rosemary at rtsaloncoaching.com. And the site is RT Salon Coaching, which is my first and last name initials. Or you can find me on Instagram, and I have artists, which is multiple artists, ARTISTS, stylist, STYLIST. And the reason why is because I like to honor and celebrate all stylists, because every person has a creative hand and a creative heart. It's just a matter of allowing it to flourish, grow, and prosper with the right people, and continually challenge yourself to grow and exceed your expectations. So, and there's an RT Salon Coaching Instagram as well. So any of those things, or you can just reach out to Tina. So
and I can connect you for sure. So I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary. Any last piece of advice before we close today that you want to give everybody?
Yes. Thanks, Tina. As my mentor says, give a heart before you lend a hand.
Yeah. So good. I love that. Thank you, Rosemary.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Tina.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. Love you.
Right.
And enjoy. And I will see you later, Tina.
See you tonight.
See you
Okay.
tonight.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.